Hey, deserving listeners, it's time for me to react to your comments from my videos from last week. Let's get to it. Danielle and Muhammad. She's Mongolian. Left a really nice comment that I won't read, so thank you for that. I read that comment. Very nice of you. Midas says, let us keep in mind that Muhammad comes from a part of the world where love is not a requirement for marriage. He married Danielle with the intention to make it work. I truly believe that. But Danielle had far too many issues to deal with. She was a horrible wife, and Muhammad reached a point that he realized marrying her was a mistake and in need of a solution. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a possible scenario. It's hard to know, and I don't think we'll ever find out. But that's one way to look at it for sure. Skits says, Danielle always draws the conclusion that Muhammad only wants her for the green card, but I suspect that she, maybe unconsciously, is dating him for that specific reason. That gives her the leverage to make sure he won't leave her and she can control him as she wishes. I don't think she actually loves him, but is rather dependent on that relationship. This is, of course, just my speculation. Yeah, I mean, it's a viable factor in their relationship. I think that both weren't nefarious or evil in any kind of way, and, you know, could have been unconscious for her. Fee says, I think that Muhammad gets upset when she cries now because she may have used her tears for manipulation in the past. My mom used to do that to us kids a lot to get what she wanted, and we saw her do that to the guys she dated. And that's how one gets used to it, because eventually one sees a pattern. Yeah, certainly that's possible that for Muhammad, because in the moment, every time that I've seen Danielle cry on the show, it looks legit to me. I'm a professional observer of people crying, not only in my clients, but students as well. There's a lot of crying in my professional day. And I, over time, over 2+ decades, have really a taxonomy of crying categories. Maybe one day I'll make an episode about the categories of crying. There's so many different, we tend to say, oh, I'm getting emotional, instead of there's so many different manifestations. It's sort of like there's different ways to laugh. There's the courtesy laugh, there's the belly laugh, there's the laugh at yourself. There's all these different ways that we laugh. Crying is similar, and I've just gotten pretty accustomed, or I would imagine, I would like to think of myself as a connoisseur of crying, if you will. And her cries seem from the depths of her pain. That is not to say that she hasn't used crying behind the scenes for manipulation, and that Muhammad got used to that and has sort of turned off from that. I think another scenario that's quite possible is that at a certain point, he just turned a corner with her, with their conflict, and he's just like, I'm done with her. And, I think we've all been there before, right? We've been in a relationship. Maybe it's a short dating relationship. Maybe it's a long-term relationship. And we just turn a corner. We're like, yeah, I'm done with that person. This is annoying to me. I don't ever want to see that person again in my life. Muhammad seemed to be at that point early in the run of their, 90-Day Fiancé story. It's when he moved out and all that kind of stuff. And I think he's just like, I'm done. And when you get to that point, you just don't have an open door to empathy for that person. Ariela and Biniyam, a lot of comments on those videos from last week. I'm catching up to the current storyline and posting a lot of videos last week about them. And I'm not going to comment on all the videos, but I did ask people, I was like, do you believe that Biniyam cheated? Do you believe that Biniyam is nefarious? Do you believe, what's going on? And, people were kind of debating back and forth, and I appreciate it, and I read a lot of it, and, I could see all the speculations, of course. Lexi says, the use of the translator is really interesting. It seems like they realize, Ariel and Biniyam, that there's a barrier in their communication, but they're misdiagnosing it as a language fluency issue rather than an emotional fluency issue. 100%, Lexi. That is very astute of you. I had not thought of it in that way. T-Mats says, I wouldn't like a bunch of random people partying in my house while I'm not there. Things could get broken or stolen, and other types of shenanigans can take place. I don't think we've been to the same type of parties, Kirk. Yeah, so this is in response to me saying, so the whole problem here that Ariela has, because she believes he hasn't cheated or, suspects that, is that he had a party in his own house. He had friends to his house. And I was like, why is that a problem? I don't understand. If my wife were gone and I had friends to my house, that's not a problem. If I was gone and Stacy had friends over, even if it was a humongous thing, what's wrong with that? It's not like you're cheating. It's not like, and I think it's kind of a little, I don't know if it's racist or something, but there's this kind of hierarchy of I'm the white American and you will do what I said. What if Ariela had this huge party while he was gone? I don't think he would have a problem. So I don't know, but I'm not saying that it can't be a problem. If, for example, my wife left and said, do not have people over to the house because I'm really particular about my things, so don't have a big party at the house, then okay, we could have a conversation about that. But as far as we know, they never had that conversation, right? The other thing that you're saying here is that, look, random people at your house, things can get broken, they can get stolen, absolutely. But we don't know that. We don't know anything about the people that came over. The way it's portrayed by Wish and, Ariela is that it was random people, but Biniyam could absolutely know those people. I have a feeling that Biniyam knows a lot of people. I think he's grown up in the same area his whole life, and he knows very well a lot of people. I've grown up in Seattle my whole life. I know a lot of people in Seattle and trust a lot of people. I know people well. If I invited all of the people I would like to have a party with, it'd probably be in the hundreds of people, Not that I'm super popular or amazing, but, when you live in the same spot your whole life, you just know a lot of people in that town. Anyway, so there's that. We don't know about that. It could be that everyone was random coming over to Biniyam's house. We just don't know. There was no detail about what exactly happened. So we just are left going, well, I don't know. But I will tell you at T-Mats, you're saying, Kirk, I don't think you and I go to the same type of parties. I've been to those kinds of parties. I was in a fraternity, for God's sakes, in college. And not only fraternity parties, but also just college parties or, parties in your 20s. I've been to parties where people got knifed, right next to me. So, I shouldn't even laugh. It was awful. I won't even go into detail, but I saw bone. It was, and so talk about shenanigans at a party. I've been to those parties, and I get that. And I understand that if you were Ariela and he had those kinds of parties, you'd be like, you had randos over to my house who could steal my stuff. But we don't know that. That's the way Ariela portrays it. But Biniyam doesn't talk. So we have no idea, is the thing. It's just a big question mark there. If Ariela said, this was stolen, or you had these randos over and we know that they're known criminals or whatever, then I'd be, oh, okay. But there's nothing. It's just like the data we have that Ariela has provided is he had people over to his house. And so I'm like, okay, is there more there? Because I don't understand. Because the whole storyline of this season for Ariela and Biniyam was that Biniyam was a complete a-hole, that he did all these terrible things, and Ariela was like holding him, to accountable. And I'm like, what did he do? I'm just like, on paper he did nothing. He might have done something, but they didn't tell us that. There wasn't any data. Anyway, he could have cheated, but it doesn't seem like it. Anyway, Please Wah says, okay, I have a theory that Binny is so avoidant and passive that he triggers the audience. I really don't have any issue with him at all, and I'm a bit shocked by some people's assumptions and anger towards Binny, but my guess is that Biniyam is so passive that he kind of is a blank slate, if that makes any sense. So it's really easy to displace experiences with other people onto him and completely assume he's an evil cheater because he doesn't say anything much. Also, the show seems to edit to say that Biniyam is a bad partner. From my understanding, the camera crew filmed him in Ethiopia while Ariela was in the States, yet we don't get to see any of those scenes because I feel like maybe it would not fit into the narrative of ambiguity that they want for the drama. Interesting, I didn't know that they filmed it. Yeah, it would be, it's like, if he did all these horrible things, then why don't they just show us the data? But who knows? It could go either way. Maybe there are terrible things and they left it out for that reason. Who knows? But that's an interesting, and I've often thought about that because as I read the comments and people email me, I pick up on like the general gist of the audience reaction to certain people. And I don't know about Biniyam, but I could see people being very much against Biniyam, given what I've seen with other characters. But so what you're saying is that because he's so passive and avoidant, that he triggers a lot of people, and then they see everything that he does in this negative light. I'm not saying Biniyam isn't a terrible human being. He could be a psychopathic, horrible human being. I don't know, but they're just, I didn't see any evidence of any wrongdoing. He was like, this whole season, if I remember right, he's trying to be a loving husband. He's quiet and reserved and avoidant and not communicative, and that's a problem. But that's, on the scale of things, it's not like a huge crime. Ariela gets triggered by him. He stays out late, but she met him when that's what he was doing, so she could have not been, if he's anyway. So they trigger each other in that way. I'm not saying Ariela is evil either. She's not evil at all. Ariela has, I believe, traumas that lead her to be very hypervigilant about abandonment and loss. So anyway, but this whole season, remember the ex-husband of Ariela came and brought bras, and had that whole thing. And Biniyam was a bit of a jerk face during the martial arts scene. But aside from that, just think about other people on the show. If Michael had an ex-wife that came and to stay with Angela and Michael, just imagine what Angela would have done. Biniyam was just like, well, okay, I guess this is happening now. And then there was the medical stuff, and then Ariela wanted to leave, and he was like, please don't leave, and she left, which, we could say was perhaps the best course of action. He's really sad, he's really anxious, and then while she's gone, he has people over to his house. That's it. Oh, and he didn't answer the phone because she was yelling at him frequently. It doesn't excuse him not answering the phone, but we saw the way she was talking to him. And if we are in his shoes, he's like, I've done nothing wrong. I haven't cheated on her. I'm working. I'm having friends over to my house, and we're having a couple beers. What's wrong with that? You had your husband over early, you left me and I'm terrified and I'm very anxious, and this is how I'm coping, is to distract myself with these other people. And you're just like screaming at me every time from the United States because I didn't answer the phone earlier today when I was busy doing and you just have this attitude towards me of just like micromanaging my life. Now he's not saying that, and that's a problem. He should say that, but just imagine being in his shoes. Just like, I'm being yelled at for nothing. I'm being yelled at because I didn't answer my phone because I was working out. Now he should admit that. He should say, I didn't answer the phone because I didn't want you to yell at me. He doesn't say that, or he kind of says it sometimes when he's pushed. What he says is, my phone was off, or I was on airplane mode. It's very shady, and of course that triggers her, which is understandable. But just imagine being in his shoes, and if the narrative, if the reality, which we have no idea, is that he didn't do anything wrong, you're just like, how come I'm being like yelled at all the time? I don't want to talk to her right now. Like, I'm working, and I'm pretty sure she's going to yell at me, so I don't want to answer the phone. And now, again, he could be a complete jerkface. I understand both people. I've worked with couples like this. Their problem is pretty low grade, honestly. The kinds of problems that I've seen, the variety, I've seen much worse problems. Their problems are pretty easily fixed. I keep talking about this. It's just like the assumptions that they're working from are so easily turned around. And Ariela has shown maturity and differentiation and the ability to be self-reflective. And so I believe that they could work on this. And it's just like two couples therapy, maybe one session with a therapist that understands that would be able to fix it. But they're not doing that. So it's, but anyway, it is interesting to think about how certain characters trigger the audience. I think that is a meta-analysis that we can all think about. Like, why does this person trigger me? Or why are we triggered by that person? I think that is something that we can learn about ourselves and about society. Linda says, I'm still team nefarious with Biniyam. With the sisters. I'm still team nefarious with Biniyam's sisters. If Wish and her sister supported their marriage, I would imagine they would either speak directly to Binny about their observations and concerns, or remain silent. Right. So there was because Ariela walked out of the tell-all, right? She was like, "You've been against us. I don't want to talk to you anymore." And I'm like, whoa, like what's going on here? And I started to kind of think maybe Ariela was right, because yeah, if you're the sisters and you observe women coming over to Biniyam's house, Biniyam and Ariela's house while Ariela's out of town, why would you call Ariela and the mother independently and amping up the possibility of cheating when you're trying to preserve their relationship? Why wouldn't you go straight? Yeah, why wouldn't you just go straight to Biniyam about it? By the way, dude, if you don't stop doing this, I'm going to tell your wife about it. So, and then, because according to Ariela's account, this is not the first time. There's been many times where the sisters have been trying to break them up. And then what other people will say is, well, but they don't want to lose their nephew, Avi, because if Ariela and Biniyam break up, presumably Ariela goes back to the States, just like Biniyam's first wife. And so that'll be sad for the family about their nephew. I think that would be a huge loss to them. But I think that a bigger desire for them is that Ariela is gone. I think that they'll take the price of not having contact with their nephew if they can get rid of Ariela. I think that's a possibility, but of course I don't know. And of course the sisters, if they were sitting here, they'd be like, no, you don't understand. So what do I know? Natalie, her dating episode. Alia says, I am living for Dr. Kirk's analysis of that creep at the bar. I've had interactions with men like this since I was 12 years old, and I really appreciate the acknowledgement that the behavior is not normal, because honestly, sometimes I forget. Yeah, so this is the episode back, I don't know, a few weeks ago, where Natalie's at the bar and this guy comes up and he's just like, something about his private parts, and it was just like when he first came over to the table, I'm like, well, he's pretty hammered. And then he started talking, it kind of seems like a little bit of a D-bag, but I want to give him benefit of that. And then, of course, I was like, yeah. Before he even opened his mouth, he just looked like someone who would say that. And then he really proved just what amount of a D-bag he was. And, I don't know what I went into, but men are taught that in order to be a man, you have to dominate women, and sexually and otherwise. And so, the catcalling and this kind of behavior in bars, it's like this completely ridiculous, sadistic, psychopathic notion that's prevalent in our culture, that as a man, even if you're just reflecting, even if no men are there to see, if you're just like reflecting on yourself, you're like, well, I inserted my sexuality into that woman's head, and so therefore I have achieved something, tick, score 1 point for me, because I inserted my sexuality into someone else's, into a woman's mind. And that, I feel powerful or better about myself or something. And, boys aren't born into this world with that notion. We insert that into their heads through all the movies and the TV shows and the playground talk and the locker room talk and the politicians talk. Like, it's all there. So, I'm guessing that guy's a manifestation of that. And it's a common thing enough that I'm sure a lot of people out there, particularly women, have experienced, which I apologize on behalf of the male group. So anyway, let's get back to the thing here. Where am I? Dawn says, the scary thing about men like that is once they cross that line and you say, okay, it's time for you to leave, please leave us alone, then they get angry at you, the woman, because they get rejected. It's happened to me multiple times, and to most women I know. Watching this dude make my heart race and my blood boil. Yeah, you and me both, Dawn. Absolutely. Chihito says, I wonder if Kirk used the, hey, what's your favorite color line with Stacy? What did I say to Stacy when I first met her? I mean, I could go into details, but I won't. I will say that when I first saw her, I've never in my life, let's just say I've met a lot of women in my life. I mean, not in that way, but you know, you just meet a lot of people. When I saw my wife, like I just never forget, I just turned, it's like this aura of, I'm getting chills thinking about, of just like beauty and golden wonderfulness just emanated from her. And I was just like, huh? And I immediately thought, well, she's out of my league, so there's really no point in talking to her. I mean, I'll talk to her, but there's no sense in me asking her for a phone number. And then my wife asked me on a date. That's true. That's what happened. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm not out of her league. Jojo says, I am half American and half Finnish. I love how in the U.S. people, so I was talking about small talk. Natalie was like, I'm not into small talk, being from where we're at. And Jojo says, I'm half American and half Finnish. I love how people in the U.S. always smile at you, even if you don't know them. And they can say such little comments, and they can say little comments to you out in public. It makes such a big difference. In Finland and many other European countries, strangers don't say hello to you or smile. If you say hello to them, they might give you a look like there was something wrong with you. It's sometimes quite lonely and unfriendly feeling in countries like Finland, and I really miss the stranger friendliness in the U.S. Interesting. Yeah. So I think I've exclusively heard negative things about the United States in this way. It's like, well, you know, you're always falsely nice to everyone. It's, you know, it's kind of a BS thing. And I can totally get that. But it's, you know, it's interesting to hear from you, Jojo, that you actually like it. Gino and Jasmine, we're meeting them. Sky says, I am a new D&D player. So I was talking about D&D and nerdiness. Sky says, I am a new Dungeons & Dragons player, about 5 months in, and they've already named me their dice goblin. Proud nerd here. Well, here are my dice. I guess I could be called a dice goblin. I have many dice. I even have 100. Anyway. Astrid says, he seems excited about her unhealthy jealousy. Gino seems excited about Jasmine's unhealthy jealousy, and as though he romanticizes her controlling nature. That could go badly and ruin their relationship, but based on his reaction, I doubt it. He likes it. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That for Gino, he might actually, and this can happen to victims of control, that they'll be like, wow, that person really wants to be with me. That feels nice to feel like that person really likes me, and look how much they want to control me. Look how jealous they are of me. That must mean love. And it's like, that's not love. That's something else. Caleb and Alina, another couple we're meeting for the first time. Cleopatra says, so I was talking about meditation and how it's great, but it's, you know, there's some caveats to that. And really the umbrella thing that we want to be thinking about for all of ourselves is relaxation, whether that's meditation or mindfulness or a massage or relaxing your muscles or deep breathing, or, you know, something along all of us should be doing relaxation, particularly for anxious people. And Cleopatra says, as a meditation instructor, I appreciate your input and completely agree. People come to me and tell me that they're doing it wrong. And in terms of meditation, you can't really do it wrong. It also isn't for everyone. So you want to follow your intuition. Yeah, well, I'm glad, Cleopatra, that you chimed in. I was worried that practitioners of meditation would take offense, so it's good to know that you agree. And I find that to be true, that, you know, people who are in the field and they're knowledgeable and they're experts are open to the caveats of their practice. In, you know, the same way for me, like I'm open to the caveats and the warnings and the cautions and the downside to psychotherapy. You know, I would never say like psychotherapy is this wonderful, you know, thing that's 100% awesome all the time. It's like, no, it's not. Helen says, thank you for commenting about mindfulness not always working and possibly creating panic in people. My last therapist wanted to try EMDR with me and got extremely frustrated that I would suddenly start crying when trying to do her version of the relaxation part. Yeah, the research clearly shows that there's a percentage of people, something like 5-10% of people, who no matter how hard they try to make mindfulness or meditation work for them, it always creates a problem for them, either panic or dissociation or discomfort or something. And it's not because they're not doing it right. It's just because it's not for them. Ida says, I'm really happy to see this specific couple on 90 Day Fiancé, Caleb and Alina. Individuals with disabilities fall in love all the time, but it is not really shown in modern media. My husband has a physical disability, but we have been married for almost 8 years. These types of couples exist and need more representation. Yeah, absolutely. I was talking about that. And it's alarming how few people with disabilities are in the media at all, let alone in rom-com types of situations. And I really commend the show for doing this. The show has I don't know what their motivations are precisely, but they have a pretty wide selection of voices, and they have diverse individuals. What am I trying to say? It's not always a white couple, for example, a cis white couple. Now they could be more diverse. I mean, we could absolutely criticize them for not being more diverse, but on the scale of things compared to other types of content, outlets, I think they're doing pretty good. Sweet says, Alina sang a song on stage that was, my P word got Wi-Fi, and Dr. Honda just sat there with a straight face. He's such a professional. I would probably melt out of my chair, so much growth I have to do. Yeah. Right. My got Wi-Fi, my got Wi-Fi. So I saw that, and it kind of blew past me a little bit. I think partially because I wasn't super paying attention to that part. That's not what I'm focusing on. I'm more focusing on the psychology of the matter. Also, I've been to a lot. I'm a musician, and I go to a lot of shows, and I've been to a lot of small club that look kind of like a small club sort of show that I would go to or might even play at. And I've seen a lot of stuff on stage. In fact, I don't know if I'll get flagged on YouTube, but there's a popular Seattle band group. Anyway, so my point is that I think part of it was that wasn't what I was focusing on, and the other thing was that I've seen a lot of interesting things on stage, and so yeah, I didn't. But then later, I was thinking about it. It's like, that is kind of a funny song. My got Wi-Fi. Linaria says, I was kind of expecting Dr. Kirk to say, well, art is art. That was different though, because I actually kind of appreciated Alina's thing. Her whole stage thing seemed interesting. At least at least you can say you've never heard that before. You know what I mean? Deborah says, LOL, if mine had Wi-Fi, I could stop paying T-Mobile and Xfinity and save $300 a month. Yeah. But does your thing have Wi-Fi, or does it pick up on Wi-Fi? What's the point there? Maybe I have to listen to the lyrics. Kim and Usman, we're meeting them for Kristen says, is Kim really okay with her partner being with other people? She said she divorced her husband because he slept with other women. I wonder if she is lowering her standards and choosing a man who is openly polygamous because she doesn't want to be blindsided with infidelity again. Yeah, it could be. My impression is that Kim is just so enamored with Usman, maybe in a similar way with Michael Jackson. I think maybe that's why they were juxtaposing those two things for her, that she is willing to convince herself of a lot of things. But we'll see. Certainly there are people who are fine with it. Polyamorous people are very cool with it. There's like, yeah, I don't mind. And from the outside, sometimes you can be like, really? You're okay with your husband just sleeping with other women? Like, that's okay with you? Or marrying other women? Like, how could you? And there's a wide variety of people. There are people on one end of the spectrum and people on the other, meaning you have, monogamous oriented people and polyamorous people, and there are people in the middle. So we'll find out together, right? Haley says, the skit, Dr. Honda's, so I was talking about the skit with Tina Fey and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and can't remember her name. She was in boyhood. The skit Dr. Honda's thinking of with Tina Fey and Julia Louis-Dreyfus is The Last Effable Day. The Last Effable Day. So, effable for women. Like when they get to a certain age, it's like, oh, this is the last day that someone will call you effable. They're having a little picnic, and then Julia rows off in a rowboat smoking a cigar to go do her laundry, LOL. Yeah, that's a pretty funny skit. Especially at the time when it came out. I remember it was such a bold criticism of our society, and I like stuff like that. Susan says, absolutely not her final chance, because Kim's like, it's my last chance. I'm 50 years old. Susan says, absolutely not her final chance. I met my lover when I was 63, and we've had 3 years of happiness. Well, good luck, or good job to you, Susan. All right. Well, that does it for that episode in which I respond to your comments. Keep them coming. I'm interested. I learned things. I feel connected to you when you comment. It feels like, okay, we're having a back. It's not just me yammering into the thing. It's, it's a back and forth. It feels good. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.